Hello everybody, my name is Isaac Ashby from Steam Thinkers, and welcome to today's activity, Circuit Puzzles. So a circuit puzzle is a collection of electronic components like motors and lights and switches that all work off of power or electricity. So we will be learning about electricity and how it works. We'll be learning about what things are conductive, what things are not, what conductive even means, and you will be building your very own circuit puzzle. So for this activity, you will need a few things to get started. First, you will need a 3-volt DC motor. Looks just like this. I get mine off of Amazon they're pretty cheap. You can buy a whole bunch of them for like 15 bucks. Or you can buy just one or two for like $2 or $3. They're pretty cheap. Or, better yet, take it out of a toy. If you've got a broken toy, just take it out of the toy. Next, you will need a battery holder that looks just like this. Now, we'll be using AA batteries, so make sure that you get the right kind. Not AAA, not AAA, but AA. There's a big difference. Next, you will need, of course, batteries. You will need 2 AA batteries, just like this. I would prefer that they were not rechargeable because they have different voltages. This is all, I don't want to go into the deep explanation behind rechargeable versus not rechargeable. Every other situation I would say use rechargeable batteries, but for what we're doing today, just use the regular old Joe, use them and recycle them batteries. Next, you will need some little wood tiles that are about 2 inches by 1 inches. They don't have to be thick, like if you can see this one, it's really thin. But they just need to be 2 inches, about 2 inches long and about 1 inch wide. Just a rectangle. You will need, 5 or 6 of those, or more depending on how many things you want to put into your circuit. Next, you will need a Christmas light. Yes, I got this off of a tree, a Christmas or a string of Christmas lights. Now, you got to make sure that it is not an LED. I know, it's like I'm going back in time to use some of these things, but LEDs, they're a lot more difficult to work with, and you can burn them out and ruin them a lot more easily than you can some of these old Christmas lights that are not LEDs. You will need a stand, if you can get one, for your little motor. Most of the time when I buy this, it comes with this. It's just a little white plastic stand. So get one with a stand. If not, you might just have to improvise. Make up a solution. Maybe make one out of cardboard or something. Something to get it off of the ground, off of your little tile. And finally, you'll need scissors and a hot glue gun. Pew, 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 pew. Okay, not that kind of gun. Just a regular hot glue gun. Oh, and one more thing, you will need some wire. I have a box of wire to choose from different colors, but you really only need 2 pieces of wire, preferably of different colors. Okay, so that's what you'll need for this project. Now I'm going to show you how to build the different components for the circuit puzzle. Here we go. Okay, let's get started. Let me show you how to build the different components. We are going to start with the battery holder. So first, you're going to take your battery holder. Now I'm going to stress, do not put the batteries in this yet, because batteries in a battery holder, they can short out really easily if you touch the 2 wires when the batteries are in. So leave the batteries out until you've got this all put together. So we are going to do this like this. I'm going to make a little bend with my fingers, just like that, just so it's a little L. So it's going to go like this on the board, or on the little piece of wood. So I'm going to lift it up, and I'm going to put some glue right in that pathway. Now you want to be careful not to boing yourself. And don't cover up. You're going to want to be careful. Do not hot glue the metal part. You want that sticking up above everything else. Okay? but all the other part needs to be firmly in place in the hot glue, just like that. Then you are going to take your other wire, usually red when you buy them, and you're going to fold it, and you're going to do the same thing but in the opposite direction. Sure, once again, to keep that metal out of the hot glue. If the metal is buried in hot glue, then it's not going to connect to the pieces when it's time to connect. Now, we need to cut a strip of tin foil that's about 1 inch or a little less than 1 inch. And I'm using this as a guide. Okay. All right, so it looks like this. Now, I am going to make sure this little metal part that's sticking out, I'm going to kind of pull it up so that it's sticking way up. We want to make sure that that connects to the tin foil. Then I'm going to put a little hot glue around the wire, like so, and I am going to glue down. Oh, I'm straightening that out. There, I'm going to make sure to press it down really well. Next, I'm going to flip it over. And glue it on the other side. Just like that. So now we have one side. Let's repeat that process for this other side. Okay, so now we have the first part of our circuit puzzle done. The power. Once again, I'm leaving the batteries out for the time being. Next, let's do the motor. So we're going to take, now these little motor mounts are awesome. So all you do is you slide it, you kind of pop it into place. Sometimes they're a little harder. Sometimes you got to come from the right end. Just like that. Okay, so it'll fit in, pop into place just like that. Okay, then I am going to put some glue there and mount it right smack dab in the middle of my wood tile. Now we need to connect the wires to my little tile guy. So to do that, what I need to do is, I'm going to bring this up so you can see it. It's a little blurry, but can you see those little copper colored things? They look like horseshoes almost. What you want to do is you're going to bend them up a little bit. Be real careful. I'm going to bend them up a little bit. That one I bent a little too much, so that they're sticking up. There we go. Okay, next we need 2 wires. I happen to have black and red, but whatever, it doesn't really matter. So I got black and red. So we need to expose the ends. So I've got some wire strippers, but if you've got wire strippers, great. If not, let me show you how to do it with scissors. It's a little more difficult with scissors, but it can be done. So I take my scissors. You're not going to pinch them and try to cut them. I just, see what I do with my fingers, my index finger, my thumb. I kind of put them together and I hold them there tightly so that the scissors aren't coming in and out. See, and that'll create a sharp V in there. So then I'll stick this in there and I'll really press it down hard, and then I'll pull. And that'll get some of it off. Sometimes it'll get it all. Sometimes it won't, and you'll have to flip it. There, just like that. See, now you can see, so there you got the metal exposed. Do that to both ends. See, just like that. It got both sides that time. Pretty simple. So I'm going to do that to both sides. And remember, once again, I'm not squeezing the scissors at all. I am holding them in place. There. Now you're going to twist it. So I hold on to with my fingers and I twist the ends so that they don't flare out. Twisting, twisting, twist, twist, twist. Twisting, twisting, twister, twister, twist. Greatest song ever. Okay, now what we want to do is we are going to, man, I wish this would focus down here like it normally does. But those little horseshoes, we're going to take and thread the metal part in and bend it over so that it sticks. See how it stays onto the end of there? Do that on both sides. So you stick it up and through, bend it over, making sure that there's metal connecting to both sides. Then I kind of press down on those metal parts a little bit, just so it kind of makes so that it pinches them in place. Okay. Okay, so now this is what it looks like. But we need to connect these, like the paddle, we need to put tinfoil on the ends of this board and connect the wires to the tinfoil. So how we're going to do that is we are going to wrap our wire. Did you see what I did there? I wrapped my wire around and under and against that white base, and I'm going to put a little dollop of hot glue right against there to keep it in place. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the red. You want the ends to know that you went far enough. I'm going to put one more little dollop of hot glue. Oh, there, that's what it will look like. See how the ends, let me use my scissors as a pointer. See the ends right here, the metal? You want your metal to be almost to the end of the wood, pretty close. See how I have that pretty close on both sides? And then it'll look like this on the back. And this will be a pretty sturdy, this will work out really well. Okay, let's do the tinfoil. The tinfoil portion is the exact same as it was with the battery holder. And voila, there we go. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So now we've got our first tile done. Look like that from the back. Let me show you from this angle so you kind of have a good idea what it looks like everywhere from all angles. Let's move to the light, the Christmas light. This one's fairly simple and straightforward. I am just going to put a big glop of hot glue, a fairly large one at that, right in the center. I want him kind of hanging out right in the center. And then I got to kind of hold him there for a minute. There. Is he going to stay? Okay, I think it's going to stay. Now, rinse, lather, and repeat. Now we need to put on the tin foil on this guy. we have a light. So, thus far, we have a motor and a light. Now, why don't we test out our connections and see how they did. Finally, for the first time, let's put in our batteries. Okay, so we're going to test. Now, to put a battery in, you'll notice that the battery has kind of two sides. It's got a flat side, and then it's got a bumpy side. So you want the flat side to go against the spring. So I press it in. Always put the flat side against the spring. So here's the flat side. Here's, you can see how that's bumpy. It's got like a little button on the top of it. Okay, so the flat side goes against the spring. Stick that in there. Now we're live. We're live! So now, all we need to do to test, and it looks, oh, you know what? There we go. Can you see that? Ba-ching! So it's working. So so we've got our light tested. Now let's test our motor. You can't really see it yet, or you can't really see the motor spin. You can hear it. So what I like to do to see it spin is I will get a piece of masking tape, not a very big one, but I get a piece of masking tape and I will stick it on there just like that. See how I put it? So it's kind of like a flag. And then you can see it spin. It even creates some air movement too. Cool. So we are working. Yay! Now, maybe we should talk about what's going on here with a circuit, because it won't make sense until you understand what's going on. All molecules, atoms, molecules, they've got these electrons that are just kind of, they're orbiting around the nucleus. They're kind of hanging out on the outside. I don't know if orbits are the right word for that, but they're just kind of hanging out in these shells on the outside of these atoms. And in certain types of molecules, these electrons will jump from one atom or one molecule to the next, and they will keep jumping as long as there is a complete circle. So right here you'll see we've got a complete circle. So the electrons will travel. Here's the power. So this is what kind of jump starts it to get it going. And the electrons will travel here. They'll go through the light, turning it on, and they will travel around back into the batteries. So you can see that it's this nice circle that the electrons travel in. Now, as they travel, it has to be a complete circle. If the circle is broken, then you'll notice nothing happens. They stop moving. Imagine that you and your whole class are sitting in a circle and you're giving each other high fives. And you can only give a high five to somebody after you've gotten a high five. So once it's started, when you slap somebody a high five, then they can pass it on down the line. Well, if you take a kid out and he can't reach anybody to give a high five to, then it'll stop and the chain will stop. That's kind of what's happening with electrons. So right now, it's not a full circle, but once we make the full circle, right now we've got electrons moving around through the circle. There we go. So now they're just going zing, zing, and they're moving all throughout this circle. Same with the motor. Boom. So now what we need to do is we need to figure out what is a switch, like a light switch, because switches are extremely important. Otherwise, you'd have to always go and disconnect from the power source, and that just doesn't work very well, right? To turn something on and off, Like this motor would just run until the battery died unless we turned it off. There are two ways to turn it off. We either break the connection or we put in a switch. So let's put in a switch. A switch is basically a break in the connection. So we will need another one of these tiles, and we will need more tin foil. Yay for tin foil. All right, there we have it. This right here is the beginning of a switch. So now let's introduce this back into the system. Now, real quickly, before we move on, we're going to talk about a short circuit because this is a safety issue. If I touch these together, it is true that I will be completing a circuit and electrons will be going in a circle. But we have a problem. When there's nothing in the middle of a circuit, when it's just electrons going in a circle and there's no resistance from a light or a motor or anything like that, then what it does is it starts to heat everything up, and you can get sparks, and you can melt things and even start a fire. Now this is low enough voltage that that's not going to happen. It might get a little hot, you might see a spark, but it's not going to be any huge deal. But you do want to be careful because it could heat up. So safety, never do this. See, I did it for a second. That's not going to cause a big problems. But if I leave my batteries in here and I put this in a bag and these lay next to each other, they could get hot and begin to melt the wires and the battery holder, and then could cause problems. So always have something in the middle. That's why we have a motor. So we're going to put the motor in here, boom, just like that. Or the light, it's safe because it's using some of that electricity and keeping it from getting hot. Okay, now we're going to introduce a switch. I'm going to put the motor in because the motor's fun, and we're going to put this little tile in. So now we've got, why didn't it turn on? Do you see the problem yet? Yep, you're probably right. I feel like I'm on Dora the Explorer. The problem is right here, there's no connection. The electrons are traveling and they get to here and they stop, and it breaks the connection and nothing happens. The electricity doesn't run. The electrons don't keep going in a circle. So we have to bridge this gap, and that is what a switch is. A switch is where it's a designed break in the gap with a lever or a switch or something that you can move back and forth to make it connect and not connect. So I'm just going to take a larger piece of tin foil. Okay, I'm going to take a larger piece of tin foil and I'm going to fold it up until it is small enough to fit on and act as a switch. So now you notice not running, right? It doesn't want to stay. Okay, so now it's broken and connected. So this, see that? The second that I bridge that gap, it turns on the motor. See, same thing with the light. The second that I bridge that gap, it turns it on. So this is known as a switch, where you have a break in the connection that's designed, and then you have something that bridges that gap and can let the electrons flow through it freely. So that is a switch. Now, some switches are like a light switch where it's up like this to off, and where you switch it down and on, and that connects the circuit. Sometimes there's sliding switches like this, like the one that we just did was just kind of a sliding switch. So now you know what a switch is. Now, we have one more thing to quickly talk about, and that is conductivity. Not all things can work for electrons to move through them, right? So that's why we're using tin foil. The wood doesn't work, right? Let's give it a try. Let's try wood in our switch. We know tin foil was working with this setup. But what about wood? Let's see. Is it going to do it? Nope. Because the wood doesn't have the free electrons to run through the system. So it's just like a break in the switch. So your job, your challenge is to figure out, go around your home and find different things. You could try silverware. You could try any number of plastics or metals or paper, anything you want. See if you can figure out which sorts of things will conduct electricity. By conduct electricity, I mean which will complete the circuit and turn the light on or the motor. Okay? Okay, now I want to give you a couple quick tips on figuring out why your circuit may not be working. Okay? There are 3 possible things that will be going on why your circuit isn't working. First, you may not have a complete connection somewhere, meaning that there's a break in the circuit. Maybe your wire isn't touching the tinfoil somewhere. Maybe your tinfoil pieces aren't touching each other very well. So you've got a break in the circuit somewhere. So go through and really press down on the tinfoil on the ends where they connect to the wires. Make sure that those are nice and firmly set in place. See how nicely that turns on now? So check that first. The second thing that could be going on is that maybe your light or your motor is burned out or broken. So I would check the, maybe try a different light and see if that works, because maybe you have an issue with your light. The last thing is that your batteries are dead. Try switching out your batteries. One more thing. As far as step number 1, I should mention with the motor that right up here when we connected these, this is the number 1 place that I see in circuit puzzles where they come undone or they aren't touching properly. These little terminals where the wires are attached to the motor. So double check those to make sure that those are touching. You might want to press down on them just very slightly, make sure that they are touching, and then try it again. So there you go. 3 steps to see what may be going on with your circuit. Number 1, you have a break in the circuit somewhere. Number 2, whatever it is burned out, like your motor or your light is broken or burned out. Or number 3, your battery's dead. Check all 3 of those things, and you will find what's wrong and be able to get your snap or your circuit puzzle working. As I like to, thanks everybody for watching this video. And I want to remind you to be safe, because once again, you can cause a short circuit that could get hot and maybe burn your fingers. It's not going to be too bad, so don't be super worried about it and try to avoid things, right? But just be smart and be safe, and everything will be awesome. So remember, to not short circuit your circuit, never touch the 2 wires together like this. I've already got mine disconnected, my batteries. I have an on-off switch on my battery holder, so I turned it off so I can do this without having any problems. But never touch the 2 wires coming from the batteries together. You need to have a motor or a light in between them. Okie dokie, you need some resistance so it doesn't get everything hot and melty. So that's all. I hope you had a great time with this video, and I hope you find some cool things around your house that conduct electricity. Try it with your switch, see how many types of cool switches you can make, and maybe try different types of lights and different colors of lights and see what happens. I don't know. Have a fun time. Thanks for watching. My name is Isaac, and I will see you later, kids. Bye-bye.